Good, good morning. Yeah, good morning. Great to be here. And again, y'all sounded. It was just. Man. Y'all were just up this morning. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the ice. I don't know, but I like it. And I want to welcome you here. If it's your first time with us, if this is your first time here with the lake, when you came in, they handed you what we call our connection card, and there's a place on the back at the bottom you can fill out some information about yourself. And if you stop by the resource center as you leave today, we have a gift just to say thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us. And we're just, by the video, and just a reminder, we're in this series, how to get what you really want. We started it last week, and with the question, what do you want? We have to figure out what we want. And even though it may sound like a pretty simple question, we learned last week that it's not just one simple answer. There's all kinds of answers. We want what we want. We want it now. We want what we want to do, what we want to do, and that's how we kind of answer it. And as I said last week, if we always get our way, if I want to do things my way, then our way may get in the way of what we really want. And if we just do what we want to do, we may end up where we don't want to be. And if we have to have it right now, if what we want is right now, we may miss out on what we really want later. And we've all kind of experienced this. We've gotten what we wanted. We went after it and we got it. And then we find out maybe this is not what we really wanted. And it's really keeping us from what we really value. I even said this last week, and I still believe this is very true, that when we look at the scriptures, when we look at some of Jesus' teachings and we listen to what he says, he always pointed his listeners, whoever he's talking to, whoever comes to, he always pointed them beyond their immediate need. He always pointed them beyond what they wanted right then to something that they really wanted, something of more value, something of most valuable. He always pushed them that way. And I shared this statement last week that we will never get what we really want until we discover what we really value. And you have to ask ourselves, what do I value? Not so much what I want, but what do I value? And it would sound like that's a simple answer, but it's not so simple. Because no one can tell you what you value. As a preacher cannot tell you what you value. A teacher cannot tell you what you value. A self-help guide cannot tell you what you value. To discover what you really value is going to come between you and God. It's just going to be that conversation between you and God. It's a time to sit down, to take some time, to block out the world, to sit down and think, to sit down and pray and write down on a piece of paper or on some kind of form, this is what I value. These are the things that are valuable to me. And once we write that down and we think, well, I've got it down on a piece of paper, let's put it in the gear and go. But it's not that simple. It sounds simple, but there's a problem. And here's the problem. Choosing valuable. Choosing what's valuable to us, what we value, choosing valuable is unnatural. We don't do this all the time. It's not part of our nature to choose what's valuable. It's not because we lack any kind of discipline. It's not because we don't lack all the information we need. But there's something going on deep inside of us. There's an internal conflict. An internal conflict inside of us that comes between what's natural and what we value. It gets in the way every time. And most people never break through that natural want to really get what they value. They just can't get through there. But when they do, when the opportunity happens and they find a way and they get through their natural wants to what they really value, their life completely changes. Their life is completely different. And we hear about that, and we want that. We want value in our life. I want value in my life. And I'm sure that you, ultimately, that's what you want for you. But it's going to be a battle. It's not going to be something that's going to come simple to us. It's going to be a battle. And it's going to be a struggle. And when I look in the New Testament especially, one of the best writers that I found that really can describe this battle for us is the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul, he write letter. He was a good law-keeping Pharisee. He knew everything about the New Testament, the Old Testament, not the New Testament, it wasn't even written yet. He wrote part of that. But see, he knew all the law of the Old Testament, everything. And he was good at it. But he hated people who followed Jesus. It was his mission to destroy the church. And he tried everything he could to destroy the church. And all these followers of Jesus, these believers in God through Jesus, he tried to destroy that church with everything in him for that first century until he became a follower of Jesus. And once he became a follower of Jesus, he wrote letters that are recorded in the New Testament. He wrote letters to, get this, churches he planted. Not churches he tried to destroy, but churches he planted. He wrote all these letters to people that he met and started a church and was sharing with them the gospel. And then he wrote a letter to a group of people he had never met, a group of Christians he had never met. He wrote this letter to some Christians in Rome. And Rome was not the safest place to be a Christian in the first century. But there was like a dozen or more house churches, small gatherings of believers that Paul wrote a letter to, and it's called Romans. And in part of this letter that he wrote to the Christians there in Rome, he describes the conflict between the conflict all of us wrestle with, the conflict that all of us battle with. And he wrote it in terms that they could understand and that we can understand. In fact, in Romans chapter 7, I believe it could be what might be called a life verse. There's a verse in Romans chapter 7 that could be called a life verse. Do you know what a life verse is? This is when Christians choose a verse out of the Bible. They find the verse that they read in the Bible, and they choose this verse. They say, this verse right here, this one right here, this one gives me hope. This one verse gives me hope. No matter how my day is going, I choose this verse. This verse right here, I start my day with this verse right here, just this one verse. This verse right here encourages me no matter what's going on. This verse right here gives me life. So they call it a life verse. John 3:30 is my personal life verse. I know everybody else, some other people might have it, but that's my life verse. And it says, he must increase and I must decrease. That God is more important than me. That it's all about him and less about me. That's my life verse. And if anybody has ever asked you, what's your life verse, and you didn't know what to say, or hadn't even thought about it much, whether I should have a life verse if someone asked me this, because in Christendom, we just have this language that we ask people, what's your life verse? And maybe you don't know, but I'm about to share with you from Romans chapter 7 a potential life verse for you that you can, if you don't have one, never thought about it, I'm about to share with one that could be your life verse. Are you ready? This could be your life verse. Romans chapter 7 verse 15. I do not understand what I do. Now you're thinking, that's it. That's my life verse. I'm going to get a plaque made, and I'm going to put it on the wall in my house. I'm going to put it on the wall in my office. I'm going to get a T-shirt made with that, or a bumper sticker. That's my life verse. I mean, there's a lot of things in the Bible I read and I don't agree with, but this part right here, I get this one. I can relate to this because I do things I don't understand why I do them. And this is a life verse right here that, you know, we've all had those stories. I could probably just pick out anybody and say, hey, stand up and tell me something you did. And then after you did it, you went home and looked in the mirror at yourself and said, idiot, why did you do that? Why did you eat that? Why did you call her? Why did you say yes? What's wrong with you? I do not understand what I do. It's my life verse, Romans 7:15. And you can just throw that out there. People say, wow, you got a life verse. Yeah, I don't understand what I'm doing. And Paul gave this to us. We should embrace this. This is our life verse. But Paul continues, and he tries to explain this. For what I want to do, what I really want to do, what has so much value for me, for what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. We can read that and say, yeah, but you got to understand, this is coming from a church planting preacher of the gospel, a follower of Jesus. Wrote a big portion of the New Testament. He's saying this. He's saying that there's something I know I really want. There's something that I know that I place value on. There's value that I'm striving for. But instead, I settle for something less than that. Something that I shouldn't do. Something that I hate. And I knew better. I knew better than this because I have this relationship with God, and I knew better with. See, let me just say this, and I want you to listen very carefully. Let's just, if we could just take a moment to be honest, all of us at one time in one place. There are times we hate ourselves. And we hate ourselves because of what ourself has done. And we were right there. And we could have stopped it. And we didn't. So we hate ourselves. And then because we hate ourselves and we feel down about ourselves, we want to blame somebody for how low we feel. We got to blame somebody. We want to blame our parents. We want to blame our boss. We want to blame the world. We just got to blame somebody for how we feel, even though we did it to make us feel this way. We have to blame somebody, and the truth is we're the only ones to blame. It's us. When we look in the mirror and call ourselves an idiot for what we did, we have to realize we're the ones that did it. This is what Paul was telling us. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe today, you're at a place in your life that I've done something wrong. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I know better than that. I wanted something better, but that's not what I got. And that's not. And we have to understand that this is an everyday battle. This is an every hour struggle for some people. An every hour struggle. I do not understand what I do. And then Paul continues. This is Paul, preacher, church planner, follower of Jesus. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. Now, I don't even want to get into all the Jewish law that Paul is referring to, because we could be here all afternoon and into tomorrow discussing all the law that Paul is referring to. But what I want to do is try to make it very simple and very applicable and very relevant for us right here today in 2019. And make it just as clear as possible. We all know the difference between right and wrong. We were raised that way. We know. We spend our entire life. We spend an entire day. We know this is how we function. This is our knowledge every day. This is right and this is wrong. And no matter how committed we are to being right, no matter how committed we are to being good, living a good life, having a good relationship with our spouse, with our children, with our parents, with the people that we work with, no matter how hard we try to save money, no matter how hard we try to take care of our body because we know that's right, and no matter how committed we are to living right, we just can't do it. And just like Paul says right here, for I have the desire, I know what I want to do. I know what's right, and I want to do what's right, and it's inside of me. I have what this is. It's in me to want to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep doing. Paul's talking about this battle. This constant battle inside all of us. This battle that says that what we naturally want is we want it our way. We want to do things our way, and I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and I want to do it now. That's what we naturally want. But what we naturally want is often in conflict with what we ultimately want. It's always right there in the way, getting in the way. It's our natural want. Because we choose natural over valuable all the time. And we do that because of this sinful nature that's inside of us. So our battle is that we know what's right, but we end up doing what's wrong. Again, like I said, choosing valuable is unnatural. We don't know how to do that. It's because of our nature inside. Paul even wrote another letter to another group of Christians. These were Gentile Christians, not Jewish Christians. These were the Christians that the Jewish Christians didn't get along with. But he wrote a letter to them because he planted a church in the Gentile country of Galatia. And it's the book of Galatians. And in chapter 5, he said this. He's still talking about this conflict and this struggle going on inside of us. But it wasn't just happening in Rome. It was happening in Galatia. And he writes this. He says in Galatians chapter 5, verse 19, I like that sound. I heard pages turning. I feel like a professor. When I say, where's that? But Galatians chapter 5, verse 19. Thank you for looking that up. So I'm not making this up. When you follow the desires of your sinful nature, that sinful nature that chooses natural over valuable every time, that's what the sinful nature does. The results are very clear. Paul's saying, I don't have to tell you what this looks like in your life. You know. That's what that means. When you choose to do this, when your sinful nature takes over, here's the other result. I don't have to tell you this. They're very clear. You've lived it. You've been there. You know that. And we could do that in here. I could say, the results are clear. I tell you what, if you would just raise your hand and say, this is an example of sinful nature, and you shout it out and we put it up on the screen, and we keep putting it up and we create a list of all these results of sinful nature, and then we all step back and look at the screen and say, yup, that's me. Or, I know somebody just like that. I know people like that. And Paul says, the results are clear, and you know them. I don't have to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm going to share it with you anyway. And this is what he says. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures. Then he gives us two words that we don't talk about too much. Not too much at all. Idolatry and sorcery. Do you know what idolatry is? Most times in church we say it's putting something before God. But Paul goes a little bit closer to home with this. Idolatry is putting things before people. Putting things before people. Have you ever heard somebody say, don't touch that? Don't walk on that? And maybe you go up to somebody or you see somebody, you need some work done, and say, can I borrow your? And they're like, well, no, I just bought that. I've got one here, though, that barely works. You can use that. But this one, I just bought. This one I keep polished. This is my favorite. I worship this. And this is more important than you. Putting things before people is idolatry. That's sinful nature. Sorcery. Oh, I don't do sorcery because that's like witchcraft and magic stuff and spells and stuff. No, sorcery is when we try to control people. If we try to get somebody to do something for us that alters their behavior but it's not really our responsibility because we convince them to do that, that's sorcery. That's what Paul's talking about. We have this nature inside of us to do this, to have somebody do something for us so we're not responsible for it. But then he goes on and he says hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger. He's referring to people with really short fuses. Because people that have a long fuse, they don't blow up in anger. They just get back at you. But the people with the short fuses, they blow up right then before you even finish your insult. I mean, they're all in. I'm in that one. I'm in that little outburst of anger. I inherited that. It's a really short fuse. I've tried to add some to it, but sometimes it only takes one statement. Psst, that fuse is about that long. Selfish ambition. I want things my way. I want to do what I want to do, and I want to do it now. Selfish ambition. Dissension. Division. Envy. Drunkenness. See, all of this Paul is writing, all of this is inside us. Naturally. It's us. This is our sinful nature. It's in us. All of this that we're reading, I don't know about. No, all of that's inside of us. And all these things have the potential to destroy every relationship that we have. All these things right here have the potential to destroy marriages, families, finances, careers. All these things in this verse, all these things in our sinful nature have the potential to destroy us, to keep us from what we really want. Now, I know you're all good people. In this room is all good people, but the odds are one or more of these things on Paul's list. One or more of these things have kept some of us, maybe have kept most of us from getting what we really want. It's right there inside us. No matter what we know about right and wrong, no matter how committed, how much discipline we have, this is going to be a daily battle because all this is in us. And no matter what we try to reach out for, it comes after us. And I know it feels like this is man, Ronnie, the ice was bad enough and the rain was bad enough. And now this, you really got me about this high right now with a ton on my shoulders. But I want to share some hope. I want to give you some hope right here. That there is a way to choose valuable over natural. That there's a way to get what we really want, what we really value, what we were created for, what we're designed for. There's a way to win this battle. There's a way to get through this struggle. Last week we looked at James, a letter from James, because this is Jesus' brother. And if we really want to know about something about Jesus and how he impacted somebody's life, we need to at least listen and read what his brother had to say. And I went back into James, and he gives us a word picture. I don't know if you know what a word picture is, but when you're reading along and a certain word pops up, that we not just read it and understand it, but we see it. And he gives us this word picture in the first chapter, in James chapter 1 and in verse 14. James is writing, and he's talking to us, talking to believers, and he says, but each person, that's all of us, but all of us, each person is tempted when they are dragged away. Word picture, dragged away. Say that, dragged away. All right, now let's put it in the verse. And when we get to dragged away, y'all say that. But each person is tempted when they are dragged away. He's given it, I see this picture. He's giving it to me. There's somebody who's wanting to do the right thing. They know the difference between right and wrong, and they want to do the right thing. They want to live the right way, and they want to develop good habits in their life. And they're really trying to embrace value, to choose value over natural. You know, what's really important, but what they really want. And something comes along and drags them away, takes them away from it. Maybe that's where we are in our life. This battle, this struggle, we know what we want, and we want to choose valuable, but there's a battle for the natural that wants to take over valuable, and we're stuck there. And it says that they are dragged away by their own evil desire, natural, and enticed by what they want now, natural. They knew what they wanted. James is saying the believer knows what they want, but they get dragged away. Something comes along and drags them away. My life was going this direction. I've got it figured out how I want to do, but then he came along. Or I've got this planned out for my life, and I know what's of value. I know what I really want, but then she came along. I've got a goal in my life to accomplish it, but then this opportunity comes along. I was going to do this, but now I'm spending too much time at work. Or now this old habit has raised its ugly head and has dragged me away, and I'm doing what I used to do and I don't want to do because this is what I want to do. But it comes along and it drags me away. And then he says, then he's talking about this evil desire and it being enticed. And he said, then after desire, this natural want is conceived. After our natural want takes over and drags us away and keeps us from getting what we really want, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, when it is full grown, when it's neglected, when it's not checked, gives birth to death. James is saying that sin, our natural sinful nature inside of us, will kill us. It will destroy everything we value. It will keep us from getting what we really want. And then we end up going through life saying, I do not understand what I do. I hate myself. But then James gets to verse 16. And here we go. He writes an encouraging word to the believers. And it was relevant to them right then. And now, here's 2,000 years later, we're reading the very same words. They're simple, but it's effective. Just can't glance over it. You have to see what he's saying in relationship to knowing who Jesus is, not his brother, but his Lord and Savior. In relationship to what Paul has been saying and how we live our life. It's so simple and effective. He says, don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Sometimes that's all we need to hear. we need some encouraging word from somebody, don't. Don't. And it has to come from a brother or sister, another believer that knows what we're going through because they've gone through the same thing. You know why he said don't be deceived? Because he knows how easily deceived we are. He knows choosing valuable is unnatural. It's not part of who we are. Don't be deceived. You know what that sounds like coming from people that we know, brothers and sisters, other followers of Jesus? They may not say don't be deceived, but they do say things like, life doesn't have to be this way. Don't be deceived. Don't be enticed by a natural want. Don't choose to do that. That's going to lead you in the wrong direction. Don't be deceived. Don't trade your ultimate want for a natural want. Don't be deceived. Don't trade valuable for natural. Don't let your sinful nature keep you from what is most valuable. And then, I don't know if you see the how in that verse, because the don't be deceived is what, but the how. My dear brothers and sisters, that's how. It's kind of hidden, but you have to really understand what he's talking about. He's really talking to us as family, that we're all part of the family of God, that we all, as brothers and sisters, we're children of God. That means that we have a relationship with God, and we receive this relationship with God through Jesus. And if we just spend some time, maybe spend some more time listening to him, not our nature, but to him, he would lead us past our immediate sinful nature want to what we really want. Something of most value. Most valuable to us. And not just today. Every day. Every time something tries to drag us away, we need to call on a sister or brother. Remember that we're part of the family of God, and he wants the best for us. He wants the most valuable for us. That's how good God is. His goodness wants what's most valuable for us. Now, what I want to do here is I want to give you, like I said a while ago, I heard pages turning, so I feel like a professor. So I want to give you a test. Not for today. Not for now. It's not a pop quiz. To do during the week. This is your assignment. And I've got two reasons behind these questions. One is to help you remember what I've talked about today, what we've read today, to help you go back and think a little bit more about what we've learned today. And the other reason is to prepare you for next week. This is like a to be continued. This second week is like a second week A, and next week is a second week B, but it's the third week. So I don't want to get into math or anything like that. So I want to give you 3 questions to think about this week and to remind you what we talked about today and to prepare you for next week. And here's the first question. I want you to ask yourself this week, what do I really want? I mean, what do I really value? What is most important to me? And why is that what I want? What do I really want? How important it is, and why do I want this? What's the purpose behind this? But then again, looking at that question, what do I really want? Has anything ever got in your way from getting what you really want? Has anything ever tried to drag you away? And that's your second question. What keeps dragging me away? If I really want this and I really have value in this, why can I not get it? Is it what keeps dragging me? What keeps pulling me back? I mean, I've listened to the message this morning. I followed along in the scripture. I ran up on the screen. I know what God's telling me. I know what Paul was saying. I know what James is saying. I know everything about it. It's like, maybe you read it in a book somewhere. Maybe you read the Bible and all this is familiar. Maybe someone just told you their story and what's going on in their life, and you sit there and say, you know, you're right. You're right. I need to make some changes in my life, and it needs to start today. And see, what you did, you just made a choice. You just made a choice for valuable. And every time we try to choose valuable, what happens? Something comes up, something in our nature, our sinful nature shows its ugly head and comes up and tries to drag us away. It doesn't want us to have that. And if that happens to you, if you can think about it, I really wanted this, but something keeps dragging me away. And if it's the same thing, If it's the same thing that keeps dragging you back, then that's where you're at right there. I want this, but this comes in. And once you know that, then you got question number 3. How long do I plan to let what I naturally want drag me away from what I really want? How long am I going to let this happen? How long am I going to let something keep value away from me? Is it going to be just another season of life? I think I'll put up with it for another couple months. Well, maybe I'm just going to put up with it for a couple of years. Maybe for the next 3 years, I'll go through this struggle. Maybe we'll just wait till the kids grow up and move out, and then we can get what we really want. We can have what we really value. Well, what keeps pulling me back? See, remember, every single day of our life is a battle. Every single day, we have to resist being dragged away from what we really want and what we really value. But as many of us know, that battle, it's worth the fight. I mean, it's worth it to fight. It's worth it to fix our eyes on something beyond a natural, sinful nature want. To fix our eyes beyond that to something that has value. It's worth the fight. It's worth just getting on our knees every day and asking God, please, I need some help today because I value what you value for me and I want to get there. But this keeps following me and keeps dragging me back. Can you take this away? And it's going to be every day because it's not going to just go away. It's worth the fight to fix our mind and our heart and our strength and our soul on something that God values for us. It's worth the struggle. It's worth the fight to have what's of most valuable in our life. So how do we get what we really want? What do I really want? What keeps dragging me away from what I want? And how long am I going to let this go on? How long can I do this? You got a week to figure it out, okay? I give you a couple days to figure that out. And I think it's important. I really think it's that important that what we talk about today, what we read about today, doesn't just stay in here. We let it eat at us, eat at us for a couple of days. These questions right here, they've been eating at me for 2 weeks now because I know I was going to talk about them. And I just didn't want to talk about it and let it go. I want y'all to struggle along with me in trying to answer these things. So let's pray. God, I do thank you. God, just for your love. I want to start right there. I want to thank you for your love for me, for all of us. What you had of value, the most valuable possession, you did not keep from us. You did not say, no, don't touch him, don't talk to him, don't look on him, no, I'll give you something else, but not what was really valuable. God, I'm so glad you did that through your son. And today I've come to realize there's this struggle. And no matter how many times I hear it, no matter how many times this sinful nature inside of us is part of us, it's the way we were born, it's stubborn. And it just doesn't want to leave. It just keeps, every time I feel like I'm taking a step forward, it pulls me back again. And every time I come to church on a Sunday morning, I start to sing some worship songs and praising with some friends and neighbors, and we're having a great time in your presence, God. And I'm just so thankful for the way you bless me and how you've taken care of my family and you're doing this in people's lives. And then I can walk outside and somebody will cut me off or mess up my order at the restaurant or spill something on me. And what I really value, doing what's right, because I know what's right, I just mess up and go do what's wrong. Every time. I don't want to do that, but I hate myself for it because I'll look back and say, I wish I'd have never said that. I wish I'd have never got what I wanted and worked and focused on what I really wanted. Something with value that glorifies you, that lifts up your name, that honors you. That's what I want to value. So God, would you please help me today? Because I know once I start looking at these questions again and I make a choice of what I value, something's going to drag me away. So I got to fight through this, God. I got to fix my eyes on you. I got to fix my heart on you and my mind on you and spend some time with you and worship you even when I don't want to, and read your word when I really don't have time.
and sit down and pray, and actually while I'm praying, just shut my mouth and listen to you talk to me. That's what I need to do, God. That's a choice. That's valuable to me. Those moments right there, God, are most important to me and most valuable to me. Would you just help me today, God, do that? Because I know in my heart, in the midst of all this sinful nature that I've been born with, that I live with every day, in my heart, there's the goodness of God dwelling. God, you're so good to me. You're so good to me. Let me never forget that, how good you are to me. I ask you to reach out to me today and give me a good hug, God, a good embrace, and use me to help someone else feel the love of you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.